really, we're thrilled to put this session together. And a special thanks to, I believe, Eric Eglund out there at Microsoft is in the audience. He brought this idea to me. Our ability as a grant winner of the Microsoft AI for Accessibility program, and Zamo uses Microsoft Azure AI services to enhance its software platform. So Eric, thanks again, and thanks to the Microsoft team for bringing this great story to us, and we couldn't be more thrilled to talk about it. And today we do want to talk about National Disability Employment Awareness Month. We want to talk about how voice and conversational AI are helping empower those with disabilities in the workplace. We also do want to talk a little bit about the state of voice and conversational AI. We have a few experts here. So in addition to the specific topic at hand, we also want to check in on what is happening with voice and conversational AI. So I encourage anybody to ask questions in the chat string. All of the panelists here, we can see those questions come in, and we may take them on the fly or take them as they seem relevant. So please send those to us. So to the panel, thanks and welcome. Happy Friday. And I'd like to just do some brief introductions, a little bit name, rank, serial number, and then we'll dive a little more specifically into what you all are up to. But then also, I'd like to know just sort of what's top of mind for you right now. So, so Guy, since you are sort of in the top quadrant for my little box here, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what's top of mind for you?
So my name is Guy. I'm a chief engineer at Zamo, where I help kind of in a Swiss knife, put the product together, understand a little bit the space, but also we put a lot of emphasis on who we are working with. So trying to understand how can we bridge the gap between the technology we work on and the people that will at the end use it and somehow also maintain that. What's on the top of my mind is the fact that it's getting a bit cold. So that has been the biggest thing for me. And also just understanding, so we are very passionate, I think everybody will hear about that. We're very passionate about that topic, but I'm also trying to understand how I can convey what I see kind of as an urgency in people adopting the technology that we will talk about today, and how can we help make that process smooth and efficient.
That's great. And briefly, your role there, Guy, at Zamo, can you share with us your role?
Chief engineer.
Great, wonderful. So John, you're here next. Why don't you introduce yourself briefly? What's top of mind for you?
John Robinson, founder, CEO of Our Ability. Our mission is to lower the unemployment rate for individuals with disabilities in the United States from 70% using technology. And we're really excited about what's going on. So I've got two answers to that. I got a short term and a long term. Long term is we're about to relaunch with all the AI integration that we're going to talk about here in a little while, all of our systems to help individuals with disabilities here in the next 4 weeks. So we're really, really pumped up about that and excited to talk today about that, definitely. And then short term, I'm a big music fan, a big live music fan. So, hearing the music coming into this sort of got me revved up and excited. So I very much appreciate that.
Yeah, Josh always gets an A+ on his playlist, so all due credit to him. Bill, last but certainly not least, talk to us a little bit about who you are and what's top of mind for you as we start this conversation today.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Bill CURTIS-DAVIDSON, and I work as an emerging technology accessibility consultant, an AI lead at the Partnership on Employment and Accessible Technology, otherwise known as PEAT, P-E-A-T. And PEAT is an initiative of the U.S. Department of Labor, so I'm honored to work on behalf of that important agency in driving positive policy advance and practices for emerging tech accessibilities for the workplace. And top of mind for me is I'm delighted to be on this last work day of the month celebrating with each of you, because this month is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, NDEAM, and for us, it's the busiest month of the year, and this year has been really astounding. And I'm really excited to have all of the large amount of virtual events we've all been able to participate in, even though we're all sequestered in our safe bubbles and trying to remain healthy. So I am very grateful to be here today. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, Bill, thank you. And Bill gets a few extra points as he's been enduring the storm where he is and had to scramble to get to a location where he had a connection. So, Bill, I appreciate you scrambling the last 24 hours
Thank you.
to join us. Well, let's jump in. And you know, because it's top of mind for all of us is COVID and where we are today. And John, why don't I start with you? And I'd just like to get each of your thoughts before we jump into sort of the meat of the discussion. How have you managed through COVID? John, has COVID made life more challenging or difficult for those with disabilities, particularly in the workplace? And what's been top of mind for you as we've endured in COVID? And then we'll get to all the panelists to answer as well.
Yeah, Drew, there's no doubt that COVID's impacted everybody that, as you would expect. From our standpoint, we have a digital platform and we have a process that we train and work with businesses to employ people with disabilities in large groups. And so where it is impacted is sort of twofold. One, it's changed the training process and the recruiting process pretty dramatically. But there's some good things to that. We as people with disabilities, we are number one problem solvers. We are able to communicate about our needs maybe better than the able-bodied population. And so going through COVID, it actually may level the playing field to work in this virtual space for a lot of individuals with disabilities. So by training, by implementing new recruiting processes, we're actually bringing people with disabilities to the table in a way we should have all along. So in some ways, the COVID virus, while it's horrible for this country, no doubt, it is a way that if we're intelligent about how we process this, we're going to be able to bring people to the table. And we're really excited about that. From our ability standpoint, from my standpoint, it has really allowed us, all the things that we're going to talk about here in a little while, to focus on integrating all different elements of AI into our processes. In an amazing way, since March, we have done nothing but laser focus on what we're doing, how we're integrating, and the things that we're going to bring to market. With the exception of what Bill just said, which is, this month has been a very busy month doing exactly this, me speaking at a microphone. I don't know who's listening because I can't see anybody's eyeballs anymore. So take this month aside a little bit and realize that this COVID period has done a great job in focusing us on honing our craft with AI, with training, bringing people with disabilities together with businesses, and we've taken advantage of this time. And so it has changed quite dramatically what we're doing, and I think for the better.
That's great. And Guy, you have a lot of different partners, in terms of using your solutions and your products. As people have been at home more, what's sort of been the impact in regards to COVID and voice technologies and people at home and working? What's sort of top of mind for you as we work through this COVID period?
A couple of things. The first one is just having the conversation. So the device were there, but for example, some partners were having challenges, securing the necessary to get started. But COVID just kickstart that,
right,
forces them to think about it and execute fast. Because as the uncertainty was growing and people needed information, they saw now that they should have been present in those places where people were interacting. And just the use case became clear, where at some point, because of the nature of the pandemic, touching and those contactless became a topic. And it just forced those conversations out of the door. And us specifically, our main pitch at we started earlier this year was, you can go fast to do this. You don't need the traditional processes to do things. And before, these procurement, all these different things, and 6 months in just to get something to people. And because of what happened, those conversations shifted where who's the fastest person who can get us there. So I think that that has been the biggest change from when we started to the moment when the pandemic started happening was awareness. People now knew and like, oh, there is this technology and I can use this and I need to be on there. So how can I get to that faster than what I used to? Because I don't have 6 months. I need to be able to help and people need to be able to access my service. And the last piece I want to echo what John said is all of a sudden, those things that were challenging before with certain people accessing the service where didn't invest time, all of a sudden is, oh, with this, we can answer more, like we can reach out more people that can now access our services. I think those were kind of the three layers of how the conversation came to us with our partners.
It's great, yeah, and certainly at CDX we focus on accelerating digital transformation. That really is our core area of focus. So it's accelerating everywhere in every little nook and cranny. And Bill, I know lots of things have been top of mind for you through COVID and with Pete and what you've been working on. I know you actually had a remote meeting, I think in June, that produced some think tank results. But talk to us just the COVID period and how that's changed things, either amplified things, created new challenges, or even opportunities.
Sure. So as John and Guy just said, people with disabilities have long requested accommodations and telework type technology. And really, as we've all experienced the crisis of this pandemic together, it's really brought to the fore how much usability is so important, as well as just equal opportunity access to participate in the work that we've already been hired to do. So inclusive meeting protocols, as well as technologies you can see just in the dominant platforms such as in Zoom or Microsoft Teams or Google Meet or others. There's been rapid adoption of multiple accessibility features that come out with some frequency and increased frequency, actually. And that's a direct result of that. And it causes a lot more innovation as well. If we just look at that from the broader viewpoint. But yes, in June, we had our latest Pete think tank, which we conduct annually, and we have some planned in the future as well. And this was all about the virtual workplace, and it was really appropriate given happening right in the middle of at least the first part of the pandemic. We're not through it yet, I guess. And it was really great convening of multiple stakeholders, which is typical of what we do. Everyone from academicians to researchers, technology leaders, disability-led organizations, and advocacy groups, as well as others. And basically coming out of this, we found that it was really important to help employers think about procurement of accessible telework technology, right? So getting, again, procurement is something that we've been talking about for really a long time, but getting more sensitivity around what does it mean to have an inclusive virtual meeting platform. And then making sure that we're educating, and again, people with disabilities are telling employers what their needs are. How can we help encourage that? And then finally, extended reality and other technologies. Right now we're talking on Zoom, but many technologies are being built that employ speech or employ virtual or augmented reality. And these technologies are well underway, and with upcoming promised releases from dominant tech players, we have a lot going on there, and there's a lot already being done. And so that was highlighted how important it is, and really indeed we were asked to pay attention to that or continue paying attention to it, but specifically in the context of virtual workplace, right? Because this is going to be our new reality even once we pass through this challenging phase.
Right.
So, and then mental health, I think there's a lot, we think about accessibility as functional access for people with physical, sensory, or cognitive challenges, but there's also the added overlay I think we all can relate to of our mental well-being
Right.
while we're doing this. And that causes additional challenges on top of challenges that already exist. So those are some things that we thought through.
Great, thank you for that. And I know you may share some other results from the think tank throughout the conversation, because I think there were a lot of insights that came out of that. So, before we jump in deeper, I'd like to get all of your thoughts on sort of top line, the state of voice and conversational AI. I mean, certainly they can be related, but they can also be separate. We think of voice and we just think of, okay, I speak my voice and something will recognize me. Conversational AI is a different animal and could provide all sorts of other types of applications. But John, why don't I start with you, and Guy and Bill, as we start to dive in here, please, pile on to the conversation, ask questions of your fellow panelists, add additional points. People aren't here to hear me, they're here to hear all of you. So John, the state of voice and conversational AI, I would say top line generally, just as a technology enthusiast and someone who works with it every day, but also as it relates to your mission and what you're trying to do at Our Ability. I'd love your thoughts.
Yeah, and that comes into one of the questions that just popped up on the panel, so I'll try to answer both at the same time.
Yeah, great, thank you.
With where we are with Our Ability, we knew we have a platform where individuals with disabilities sign in and fill out information in an old and archaic way. And we knew that technology is a great equalizer for people with disabilities. And we knew with voice and conversational AI, we could do a better job in grabbing people's abilities, skills, interests, and do a better job in harnessing them early and faster. And so what wasn't available to us 8 years ago as we started this process is available to us now. And so to answer the question in the chat bot and to answer yours, Drew, what we've spent the better part of the past 12 months is working with Syracuse University, Microsoft, Blue Granite, and then Zamo, especially with Zamo, in working on doing a better job at harnessing people's information at the point of contact, right? And then taking that information and creating a profile and making a skill match towards where they're going. This is where we started 12 months ago, and I could not be more proud of what we've done and what we're doing. And so we're here in a little while, within the next 4 weeks, we're going to be launching our brand new system to be able to do a better job in a career path for individuals with disabilities on our website. And we're really, really excited about that. Then in this process, we were introduced to Guy and his team with Zamo about, hey, can we use voice to tell people about what Our Ability is? And it was an eye-opening, mind-blowing opportunity for us to be able to use cutting-edge technology in a way that's right there and prevalent to a lot of people, and again, at the point of contact. We immediately said yes and started working on that. Then as that was up and running, COVID hit. We were asked by some very important friends of ours, hey, could we very quickly put some questions and answers up on how COVID impacts individuals with disabilities? Again, immediate email to Guy and his team to go ahead and do that. Now, talking to Guy and his team about, hey, can we enhance what we're doing and tie in our profile system into voice technology? And then, what happened earlier this week, other people have reached out to us and said, hey, can we adapt what we're doing and use it for other purposes in the disability space? The opportunities are endless. What we want to do is we want to create a common language, a level playing field for businesses to be able to speak disability, for disability to speak business. And voice and AI technology are allowing us to do that. We could not do it without our great partnership, especially with Zamo and with Syracuse and Microsoft. But because of these partnerships, we are able to do it. And, we, like I said at the beginning, we've become a technology company without meaning to. But I'm really proud that we're doing this to level that playing field and lower the unemployment rate for people with disabilities from 70%.
And Guy, please, Guy, go ahead. Jump right in.
Because I think John is a bit humble, because I think it's the easiest example of all the multiple forms that voice and conversational AI have. So the first form is so John just went down into the example, and I hope Abdullah, who asked the question, had an answer. But the first form is you have an existing service, but we always see disability, as Bill mentioned, as functional. But Microsoft has another concept that I like, which is for who the system is broken for. So let's just say I'll come in onto the website and like there's so many buttons, so many research, and I'm just looking for something. And I'm not as familiar with an interface. And I always talk about that because originally I'm from Cameroon, and we are not that, like, we don't have that technology penetration. We just have simple text messaging. And some people need to access the information. And for example, for John, just converting their website so people can interact with it through conversation, meaning not going and clicking, just saying, you have a chatbot, so a regular thing that you all use, and then you will just say, I am looking for this. And the website will display. So you now control the website through the chat. Take it a step back, instead of typing, because it's broken for those who can't type. Now we can bring in speech. And just accessing the service is a first level. You have an existing information, it's out there. Let's just change and fix for who the system is broken, the way you access that. And the second part of the example of John, which is, oh, okay, now we have this source of information and we want to do something else with it. So some people might not have, the system might not be broken for them, but they need to help and be the bridge for someone else. How can we facilitate that? And that's the second part, where today you can see the interface, the touch point. Some may have a smart speaker, some may have search on their phone to look for something with voice. All of that is good. But on the other end, it's how do systems become less broken for different people? And I really want to emphasize that, which is existing. I just change how people access it, and new, unique ways of, hey, it's not for me, I'm bridging for someone else, or I'm doing something else, serve me this content. And I think those two angles for me represent today kind of what's the state of conversational AI is, how can I access services where before it was challenging, or how can I do just something new, unique? Like the example that John mentioned is just very simple, is I have a question for someone else. So I don't need you to redo your system. I just want you to be able to help me, because I'll ask specific stuff so I can help someone else. And that mindset, I think, is where we are today, and where people need to position themselves in organization, my existing and new ways to interact.
That's great. And Bill, please build on that in regards to, as your role managing PED and working with the Department of Labor, you, especially in the last month, but certainly the last year, you've seen a lot, worked with a lot of different partners. The state of voice and conversational AI from your perspective.
Sure. Just a couple of comments, though, on what John and Guy just said, is that, first of all, as we I think all know, but just worth stating, of course, we're talking about a job matching and recruiting type scenario, but these conversational AIs could be in any kind of workplace app, and are already right in those type of applications, whether it's a employee self-service or filling out paperwork, applying for benefits, or enrollment, things like that. There are chat bots and these type of AI enabled tools that are becoming very, very prominent. I was just at the HR Tech conference this week, and these are very, very common and becoming more prolific. So what we're talking about today really, as Guy mentioned, has a much broader application. And the other point I want to make is that what I love about this discussion and many others that I'm involved in is that we can see here how when we leverage the lived experience of people with disabilities and actually leading these ideas like John has done here, we can really benefit, because sharing their perspectives and leading design and coming up with design ideas really blows open a whole world of possibilities. And that's what we want to encourage. And of course, Microsoft has been an exemplar in inclusive design framework, one of the most commonly referred to ones. And then again, we've got them all over. Now it's becoming more commonplace, but I love that about both what the gentlemen were both saying. And I guess some other examples of AI enabled systems that we're seeing are, speech is used in a lot of different ways. For example, captioning videos for people who are deaf or hard of hearing, live transcription of conversations like you see with like Firefly.ai and other tools, right? So a lot of the speech tools are used for productivity or for augmenting communication for people with speech or cognitive disabilities. With all of these, we just have to pay attention to fairness, and we can talk more a little bit about that later, because really what we have to consider as well is that people with disabilities may have impact in terms of the content or clarity of their speech, right? Or the ability to perceive sound. So we always have to think about that, and many of the dominant smart speaker systems or have been addressing this in various ways through multimodal options that complement and provide equal access on top of the more main use case of audio first type usage. So those are some important topics.
That's great. I'd like to open this up to all of you. And again, and thanks, Abdullah, for the question. If you all have questions, please put them in the chat string. We will obviously get right to them. But I'd love to hear from all of you and just open it up and create an interactive conversation amongst you all. Looking ahead, COVID is a unique time, and hopefully we get through to the other side soon-ish. But what excites you about the innovations that are on the horizon as it relates to voice and conversational AI for people with disabilities in the workplace? And anybody can jump in but what are you really excited about moving forward?
I'll pipe in just for a second.
Yep.
We're so laser focused on what we're doing with the voice that we've talked about, and the jobs portal that we're coming out with here in 4 weeks. I have to say, as we've been working on these things and started to have conversations around them with some of our partners, I'm excited about what I don't know. I have had more conversations in the last 2 weeks of people approaching us saying, can we use what you're doing for this in the disability space? Can we use what you're doing with this to reach people with disabilities? I am so excited about what we're creating that is going to open so many other doors in so many other aspects, some with our ability and some without, but it's going to help people with disabilities around the world. I cannot tell you how excited I am about that. I used the example earlier on parents of children that are transition age from 16 to 24, had reached out to us, heard what we're doing, and want to create a huge question and answer database on what do I do for my child because I'm really worried. And you want to think about the emotions of all of that.
Sure.
Can we create a database and voice technology around these questions and answers? We absolutely can. And it's mind-blowing. We hadn't thought about it. And it is a pathway towards employment, absolutely. And yes, we can absolutely incorporate it because we have the right partnerships. So Drew, what I'm excited about is what I don't know. The phone call that I get Monday morning or 4 weeks from Monday when the system's up, because we've done something that nobody else has done. And there's so many more applications that are out there. And Guy told me the story a year ago about why they do what they do with Zamo. And I thought it was fantastic. And I have not lost that, in that we want people to communicate better. And I'm paraphrasing what Guy said a year ago. It's so true. What we wanted our ability is to use this technology to communicate better for a specific purpose. Ours is employment, but there's so many other applications.
Yeah, and I definitely want to add to that. I think the opportunities is what I'm looking for, because from my perspective, we solve part of the technology challenges. Bill mentioned that, and I know it may sound to the people listening to us, Microsoft has done it, but And I could put more link onto the chat for the Microsoft research, especially if you're a little technical. Go look at the white paper. You have a lot of things that are being done to facilitate the making of the products. And I think that's where we are standing for. And what John mentioned, like kind of the learning of what people want to do now that it's possible to do it, just make it really exciting, because now before, and I think we kind of skip over that because there are challenges, and I'm hoping we can talk about it. So it's not all perfect, but we have the opportunity to, one, make it better, and two, just enable a lot of things. So what John was referring to is I think a lot of us don't necessarily have access to certain things. And it has, so for me personally, because we always think about functional. Me, I just say, even if functionally you can do certain things, there are certain information, just because of the complexity, just because of the way it's presented, you
Right.
don't get that information. And conversation, because it forces those with information and you to agree on the protocol, just like we are talking here. We have to use English, we have to use sentences and all these different things, because it forces us to agree on the common protocol. It puts all of us on the same level and help us now finally being able to get the information and ask question and work on something that we, for most of us, and again, I don't want this to be assumed, most of us are able to do. So like expanding a bit and knowing that now it's possible to solve this problem. I think John mentioned like we're a solver problem. That piece is important. We can solve problems. And past that COVID, I hope we keep that mindset, which is when something challenging happen, we are resourceful and we can come up with solution. And that's where the key, the excitement for me is people now doing it. Like we can solve things.
That's great. Bill, I know John wants to get to a question that was asked there, but Bill, I'd just love to get your thoughts on, what's exciting you about voice and conversational AI as it relates to empowering those with disabilities.
Sure. Yeah, there's been a lot of great research. I think what's exciting to me is that we've had in the last, especially the last 2 years, a lot of research done. For example, last year, my researchers from Microsoft and Carnegie Mellon produced a research roadmap called Toward Fairness in AI for People with Disabilities, and it outlines a lot of great aspects of how AI is being used, including for automated speech recognition, speech generation, many different areas. But it also points out a roadmap for what we have to pay attention to, which is, as Guy just mentioned, right? We and John as well, the data sets, right? If someone's asking a set of questions and maybe those are related to a disability area or accommodations, or if
Yep.
they're done in a way that uses non-standard speech patterns or things like that, we have to train, we have to have data sets that are inclusive of that. And we also have to be able to make sure that our algorithms used in machine learning that are actually the engine of how AI tools work, that they account for that diversity. And so you'll see in these papers, and I'll put a link in just a moment to that research roadmap. These are the kinds of things that we're working on with our partners to try to, for example, increase the amount of inclusive data sets that are at work in these different domains, such as chatbots or hiring tools, as well as the machine learning algorithmic bias reduction, which is also at work in other areas of diversity, such as race and gender, for example. So those are some exciting areas that I'm really interested in.
That's great. And I'd like to, again, take this question here. John, I'll have you jump in since you enthusiastically supported the question here. And then anybody can jump in as we maybe dig in a little bit specifically on AI. Are there steps being made in the use of AI to enhance speech, like in the case of people with CP, which I'm going to assume is cerebral palsy? And we had also talked a bit about non-standard speech patterns and maybe there being innovations around that in terms of sort of the state of voice and speech. But John, what are your thoughts on that question?
Yeah, the simple answer is yes. I mean, one of the things that we are excited about with what Microsoft is building is it takes into account people with CP. And and I will say, while no system is perfect, I am really impressed about what they're doing to be able to incorporate individuals with CP into the understanding of the model. It's been great what I've seen. It's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about using Azure and what we're doing, because it's encompassing this, and a lot of what Zamo's doing as well has this in mind. And so, to 842-546, yes, the answer is yes. And like I said, nothing's perfect, but it's getting better every day, and you should be proud of that, because we're getting there, and that is the point. To what Bill said a minute ago about data sets, that's what keeps me up at night, the data set, because we're trying to take out the bias in disability employment with everything that we do. And so, we're building a data set. We're thinking about data sets to be able to remove the bias and really focus and hone the ability of individuals with disabilities. So I echo everything Bill just said a minute ago on data sets and making sure that is top of mind.
Great.
Yeah, I want to add on to that. So I'm hoping out of our conversation, people can definitely learn a bit about the field. But the second point is, we are as contributor as we are user of that technology. What I mean by that is, yeah, we can think it's kind of being solved somewhere by these larger corporations, and they're trying. Like, trust me, they're putting massive amount of brain power. But what Bill said, I think, is essential. Every time you hear AI and you go somewhere and they don't talk about data, no offense to that AI place, but you may want to question that. So I'll share a little link. So there's this project, Euphonia, from Google. So essentially, part of solving the solution is also us. So there are places, so Mozilla is providing some, where you could provide samples. So for example, my main concern is dialects and dialects groups, which are slowly kind of disappearing because the web is focused on a specific set of language, English, Spanish, etc. And a lot of people, unfortunately, either are underrepresented. I have an accent, but most of the smart speaker I had, if you see me speaking to a smart speaker, you'll understand how much effort it is to make sure that it's correcting me. But so ensuring that those places get access to obviously open data sets on which it includes all the ways we are speaking, the accents, the dialects, and all these different things. So building out data sets is also part of the solution, where if we can have people that can provide data to help improve those systems, it's as efficient as just people trying to optimize or do miracles with algorithms. That piece will be always limited in a sense. I think I want people to understand we are as powerful as these organizations because we work together. If we can provide a diverse set of data sets, it just makes the system way better. Obviously, we can pick the place, we can really take into account more things, but just providing the data is a key to solving those. So they are trying, there's multiple problems. We talked about one, but there's a whole list. But I'm hoping everybody can understand, if we all team up together, we could solve those.
It's great. Bill, do you have some thoughts on that? And Bill, what I'd also like you to answer briefly, just for our audience, and it can be contextually related to your answer to the question as well, is talk to us about the DOL's partnership on employment and accessible technology, right? What exactly is it, and when was it sort of founded or started, and its mission? And then I'd love for you to chime in on the answer to that question as well, as it relates to AI and speech.
Sure. So PED has been around, I think, for about 6 or 7 years, maybe. The initial efforts of Pete really centered on digital accessibility in general, and really did a lot with procurement and really trying to make sure that buyers and that employers were adopting technology so that we can address the overarching issue of access to technology, which is so critical in the workplace and has been for so long. So there were a lot of focus on that dimension in the since last year. There's been a real focus on emerging technologies, specifically AI, XR or extended reality, which comprises virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality, and then automated vehicles, which are a part of, as we know, companies like Alphabet's Waymo, self-driving cars and vehicles will be a part of how we all, interact and be able to get to our workplaces or get to, educational settings and what have you. So these are really important elements of future workplaces. So what Pete does is we convene multiple stakeholders, and we do our think tanks. We produce a lot of resources and toolkits. We have podcasts and other types of resources that you can see on peteworks.org. I'll put the link in the chat, and you can, pay attention to that space. We've actually got some. We recently had a podcast with Eightfold. .ai, which is a recruiting platform and work that they're doing. We have a lot of resources planned for the future, and stay tuned using our website, and you'll be able to learn more about that. I did put a couple of other resources here. Google Project Understood, which is an interesting project like what Guy was just talking about, where how can we again use the lived experience, but also the speech, the actual articulation or work that people are doing as a kind of collection mechanism to build better data sets. And there are some other efforts too that are too numerous to mention that we can cover as well. So I encourage anyone to reach out to us and stay involved.
That's great. We just have a few minutes left, and John, I always like to dig into some real world case studies and what's happening, and I'd love to hear a little bit more, and I'm sure the audience would, about the portal and what's coming, and just tell us about how these technologies are helping as it relates to a jobs portal, and just walk us through exactly what that portal is and how it's going to help people with disabilities and how that works technically, and I know you're very excited about it.
Well, the first thing is that even no matter what group of people you deal with, and inclusive of people with disabilities, regardless of the disability, we're all walking around with this, right? I mean,
yeah.
we just are, or we have a tablet or we have a computer. And what I was realizing is by having the older system that we had, where you had to go in and type in information, we were missing a segment of the population in a great way. And getting to the question about CP and getting to language and realizing the point of contact is there, that we wanted to incorporate AI and a chatbot on the front end of what we were doing. But the chatbot has to be accessible. The questions in the chatbot have to be disability centric. And so then it can go into the voice realm as well. And so we spent a long time in building that. But then we realized that the power that we have with Azure and what we can do with it. And we realized that we have a jobs board where you have 50,000 jobs at any given time from the companies that we work with. And they all have words in those job descriptions. And so we've used a customized process to in real time look at the profile that people have built with the answers to the questions that we're asking them, and look in real time with the job descriptions and make a career path match. And so that's what we're really excited about, what we're doing, and it's all disability centric. It's going to be up here within 4 weeks. We're just prettying it up a little bit because it needs to be, but it works and it's up and running on the inside. Now we have to take it to market. What we're excited about beyond that is, like I said before, all the other applications, from integrating it with Zamo and voice technology to taking it out to other disability groups that have asked us if they can white label it and put it around the around the world. I mean, that's where we're going to be able to do what we really want to do, which is to create an intelligent virtual job coach that can create a career path for individuals with disabilities. This is something I needed. I was unemployed after I graduated Syracuse University in 1990. I was unemployed for 4.5 years. And the reason I was unemployed wasn't that I didn't have the skill to do the job, is that the market wasn't ready for me and I wasn't able to present my skills in an equitable way. And this system is designed to help me a generation ago, but for the next generation.
That's great. It's very exciting. And Guy, as we wrap up here in just a minute, I'd love your thoughts on you know, what Zamo's doing now, and you know, what does it look like in the year ahead at Zamo, both in your partnership with John, and just in your other initiatives in regards to voice and conversational AI.
So our ambition now is to get every organization possible to start, and we have that philosophy of, you know, crawl, walk, run. We try to apply that, like we push our partners, like start small, like don't go into lengthy, completely transform everything, because that's challenging. And because of the time, we want to be focused. So really try to enable, and there's a lot of organizations that are thinking about it. I've tried stuff, but it's just enable them to get something out there. And a year from now, getting into that second phase that John and the team has reached now, which is, I've tried it, I've seen things work, and go into the actual practical AI. So tomorrow, like, finding ways to you know, renew your driving license or doing certain things, we should be able to skip a whole bunch of steps just because we are thinking differently as we make the service more accessible. And I'd like everyone to get the broader definition of accessible. So really helping people get deeper and follow kind of the process that John and the team has seen, quick to start. And then once we have understood the power, just completely make our whole services accessible.
That's fantastic. Thank you. And John and Bill, thank you for putting your contact info in there. Guy, if you'd like to put your contact info or the website for your company in there, that would be great. Bill, I'll give you the last word here, since you've been through hell and back just to get on the call today. But you know, what are your parting thoughts as the year ends here, with all the exciting initiatives going on at the Department of Labor, at Pete, and in your organization? You know, what's top of mind for you as you look ahead?
Sure. Yeah, so I love what you were just saying, because one of the areas that we are definitely focusing on is, while we work with partners like the large tech companies like Microsoft, Google, IBM, others, we're working with startups as well. Startups are really key. There's a lot of great ideas coming out, which is exemplified by the work we're talking about today from Our Ability and Zamo. And indeed, we're going to be convening a group of stakeholders that squarely starts talking more about this space. And next year, we plan to do more programming in that area with the American Associations of Persons with Disabilities, people with disabilities. And there is a lot there. As Guy mentioned, this is not just big tech co's. I think a lot of the enabling platform technologies are produced by the large companies, as well as key research. And there's a lot of room for innovation in startups and with creative combinations like we see here at work today with John and Guy's organization. So I'm very excited to be here and look forward to more of these type of discussions.
Yeah, I thank you for that. And but you brought up one thing that I would like to mention here and get everybody's quick input on. Part of my network going over the years is I ran a conference called App Nation for 2010 to 2016, and we looked, you know, we were focused on sort of the business side of apps, but you know, that was 6 years of talking about open APIs and app developer programs and all these types of things. So I'm sure there are some developers out there that are listening. Where are the different resources where app developers can, you know, can go to, whether it's a website or any specific programs you all have, whether you have open APIs where developers can be developing applications, because you're right, that is a lot of oftentimes where the innovation comes from. And there are a lot of sort of voice and AI app developers out there. So any resources for that community, please, anyone jump in, that would be great.
I can quickly start. I
Yes.
can highly recommend Bot Framework from Microsoft. So not just because Microsoft is here, but they're building it in open source. And you'll get to know why it makes a difference. We can have a second conversation on as to why, but you can see how things are being done. So I would encourage, Bot Framework is very open. Otherwise, there's many things, voicebot.ai just for the news. There is This Week in Voice and the just voice conference. So it's two big conferences where you can get, but Bot Framework with all it's kind of open and show you all the different pieces, so you can pick and choose which one you like or the whole set. So I would encourage developer to start there because it forces you to understand how it works. Otherwise, then you have the big platforms which have dedicated, but to their platform. So it's not open, so there's a specific mindset. That's why I encourage Microsoft first, and then you can dive into other places.
Great. John and Bill, any other thoughts for the developers out there?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Guy just said, and actually that one of our goals with this is to make the chatbot part, the accessible chatbot part, open source, so that the disability community can build upon it. We want to keep it for proprietary reasons with employment, but beyond, you know, the chatbot function of it, we're hoping it's open source and it runs on its own. And that's the goal with it, because we want the disability community and the tech community to embrace each other.
That's great. Bill, any final thoughts there?
Again, check out, as in addition to what Guy and John just mentioned, I put a link to Microsoft Responsible AI resources and tools. I think Microsoft, Google, and IBM actually have great resources on inclusive design or fairness tools, looking at machine learning algorithmic fairness and bias, different kinds of resources, checklists. Those are highly valuable, I think, as you get more involved in this space.
That's great. Well, look, I could keep talking, but I know you have things to do. It's Friday. I really thank all of you for joining us, and I thank Microsoft again for bringing this idea to the table. John, I wish you luck on the portal. Please keep us up to date as to when that launches. Guy, thanks again for joining us, and I'm very excited about learning about Zamo and seeing what happens moving forward. Bill, thanks so much, and on behalf of what you're doing on behalf of the Department of Labor and our tax dollars going to something that I didn't know existed and is a fantastic resource, and we're glad you're doing it. So happy Halloween early to all of you. Hope you survive the election madness of next week, and I look forward to having this conversation again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. And thank you, everyone, for attending and your questions. Thanks a lot. Have a good weekend.